The administration has made deals with a variety of elite universities, but negotiations are ongoing with Harvard. The president said today that we may have a deal pretty soon here. Do you have an update on that?
Well, he's right. It's ongoing.
What does the Trump administration need in order to settle with Harvard?
Just continuing negotiations. Harvard's made some concessions. They've come to the table on some things, and we're still, it's the way negotiations go. You go back and forth until you get a deal done.
I'm at the Department of Education with Secretary of Education Linda McMahon. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming over.
Next week is School Choice Week. What is on the schedule?
Well, we're going to have a big announcement at the beginning of the week designating that this is School Choice Week. We'll be doing some traveling, but it'll be a really, really fun week. And this is, it's really a special week because the president absolutely believes in school choice. I mean, he's the first president, I think, to get a national school choice bill and the one big, beautiful bill. And he's very excited about this. We'll be talking about it all week long.
About 15 states have opted into school choice so far. How many more states do you expect will opt in?
I hope as many as possible. I think we'll get at least to 25 and hopefully more. But it's it's a big project. Some states have tried very hard. I think Governor Reynolds, it took her 2 years, 2 terms actually, to get her school choice, pushed through. And but she was adamant about getting it done. They just passed it last year in Texas. So, it's hard to get through some legislatures, but the governors seem to be committed, to doing that. And I'm very happy that we were able, last year to get another $60 million put into, school choice, bringing the total up to $500 million. So that was that's a record, and we're very happy about that. So we hope to see that, throughout the country.
The Treasury Department needs to start rulemaking on the school choice tax credit you mentioned that was established in the One Big Beautiful Bill before it takes effect next January. What are your expectations for this?
In terms of the rulemaking?
Yes.
Well, I think that rulemaking is always rulemaking, but I think we're going to be very successful, in getting through this process. I think Treasury is totally on board with it. It's where it appropriately resides, of course. And so it's always a process for rulemaking, but it'll get done.
We talked several months ago about methods for codifying, dismantling the Department of Education. Are you still in talks with Congress about using a series of small bills rather than one big bill to dismantle the department? Well,
here's how we're doing it, and I don't really call it dismantling. I talk about it as getting education back to the states. But what we are doing is moving some of the functions of the Department of Education into other agencies as kind of a proof of concept. We've done it with the Labor Department. We're on our second, what's called interagency agreement, with them now. The first one, really dealt with more, workforce development, with Perkins grants and with WIOA. And so that proved to be incredibly good. And we've actually gotten out, payments to over 43 states, since we did that. So it's working really well to use their technology, which is better than ours, and so it's proven to be a really good partnership. Secretary Chavez de Raymer and I are directly on the same page with how this needs to work, and as we move more and more into workforce development, into labor, there were 23 different workforce development projects all across government, which really made no sense. So we're now consolidating them, put them together, and have them in labor where they belong. I think we'll see a lot more benefit coming out of doing that.
And you've said in the past that's something you do want Congress to codify. What timeline would you expect for that type of thing to make sure this is permanent beyond the Trump administration?
Well, certainly we are planning to get them all done during this administration because that's really key. And I think we're moving along, but I think it is, we have to stay in touch with Congress. They have to know what we're doing. So far, so good.
Are you seeing a lot of interest in this from Republican lawmakers?
Sure. How is it working? They think this is a right step to take. They won't agree with everything, along the way, but I think they're agreeing with most of it, and so I'm pleased so far. We're just underway. We've got a ways to go, but we'll get there.
Democrats are reportedly trying to block moving Education Department responsibilities to other departments in the spending bills funding the Department of Education, Labor, and Health. Are you working to prevent this from happening?
Well, we certainly are trying to work in conjunction with Congress to get these things passed. And as we look at, as we look at the budget and we look at the ways that we're trying to do this, they make sense. This is not something that's, extraordinary, that we're doing. There hasn't always been a Department of Education. It didn't come about until 1980, and all of the funding streams managed to get to where they were supposed to go. And I just certainly think that we can get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy and the cost in Washington. We can make it more efficient. We can have less regulation. And all of that is a good thing for our students. And by the way, Department of Education got established in 1980. We've spent $1.7 trillion to watch our NAEP scores, or the nation's report card scores, continue to decline. We are not doing something right. And the actions that we have taken in Washington so far, building up this bureaucracy that we have here, has not been effective. It's been detrimental to our students.
You've talked about some of the responsibilities of the department that have been moved to other agencies in the first year of the administration. Should we expect more programs to be moved similarly in 2026?
Yes, we're working on other interagency agreements. We're working on one with HHS, at this point. And there'll be other agencies that we are already working with. We've signed a few of these IAAs, but we've not implemented them yet. The first stage is getting them on board, and talking to the different agencies about how we can move things there.
The Education Department is delaying the plan to garnish wages from defaulted borrowers. What's the reason for this change?
Well, it's in conjunction, if you will, with the Treasury Department that will do the actual, collecting part themselves. But now, as the One Big Beautiful Bill has been passed and there are different options, we want to make sure that as we continue to reform this repayment plan, which was an unmitigated disaster under the Biden administration, were loans going to be forgiven, were they not going to be forgiven? All of these different ways to pay came into play. People just stopped paying. They didn't know what they were supposed to do or not supposed to do. So we want to take some time to make sure that the options are very clear. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill, two primary options, and one is to tie it very closely to an income-directed payment plan. But there'll be some options under that. So we want to make sure they're clear, that those who are participating understand exactly what's expected of them, and that it'll move forward.
That makes sense. What will be done to make sure these options are more clear in this time while it's paused?
Well, as we continue to develop that, we communicate them exactly, what we are doing, and that people, have buy-in, and that when they sign off on borrowing the money, they know they have to repay it, and this is the plan they're going to pay it under.
When do you expect these involuntary collections to resume?
I don't know. We'll see how quickly we can get the payment plans in place. It's not that we're starting today. We have been working on these, for a good while. So I expect that we'll have them in place sooner rather than later.
A big topic lately has been the welfare fraud that we've seen in Minnesota and other places across the country. The Education Department announced it found a pattern of fraud with FAFSA, and it's starting a fraud detection team. How will this team work?
Well, we already have, the team in place that we are working. We've discovered, it's been amazing what we have discovered. And let me just digress for a second. FAFSA was broken when the Trump administration, took office this time. And it just, the applications weren't coming in before, et cetera. We've totally revamped FAFSA. We had it up and running even in advance of when Congress had said that we must do it. We actually have a section in it now that gives ROIs to parents as to, they'll know how much programs cost and how much the student that is paying for that can expect to be paid in the job market. Good information for students and parents. So that was kind of a first step. Let's get FAFSA fixed. In that process, what we were discovering was that many of the applications were actually being filled out by bots. There were dead people who were applying for loans and receiving them, bots who were receiving them. And we identified in Minnesota several, thousands of these bots. And I think we saved, I can't remember the exact amount, but I'll get it back to you. But it was, a substantial amount of money that we saved from going out the door. We prevented it from being wasted. All total, we have identified and saved about $1 billion that would have gone out for FAFSA loans that would have been fraudulent. So I think we've done a really good job at doing that.
Will it be possible to recover the $90 million in student aid that was fraudulently dispersed?
Well, our focus is being now on preventing more fraud from going out. I'll leave it up to Treasury and the departments that we'll be working with to see how that will work out.
Do you have any more details about how this fraud team is working, who's running it, what the people are, if the people have been hired on it yet, that kind of thing?
Not in detail. I'm not involved in the day-to-day detail of how the unit has been set up, but all I am pleased about is the results. I'm very pleased with the results. So I think they've got a good team in place, and I think they're doing a really good job.
Great. The administration has made deals with a variety of elite universities, but negotiations are ongoing with Harvard. The president said today that we may have a deal pretty soon here. Do you have an update on that?
Well, he's right. It's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. What does the Trump administration need in order to settle with Harvard?
Just continuing negotiations. Harvard's made some concessions. They've come to the table on some things, and we're still, that's the way negotiations go. You go back and forth until you get a deal done. Reportedly,
Harvard is willing to pay $500 million for workforce development programs, but the Trump administration has been asking that some of that be paid directly to the U.S. government. Do you think that Harvard's close to agreeing to this request?
It's part of the negotiations. We'll just have to see.
Mm-hmm. So far, on the higher education compact, looks like New College of Florida and Valley Forge Military College have agreed to sign the higher education compact. Do you plan to revisit working with colleges who were originally invited to sign and haven't done so to get more signatures on this higher education compact in 2026?
Well, let's be clear. There is no higher education compact at the moment. There was a draft version, preliminary version, that went out that was intended to be sent to universities to get their reaction from it. It didn't go far and wide, so some did react. We are working on developing the right kind of compact with some input that we're already getting. So I expect that once that's done, we'll see a lot more people, signing up, a lot more universities signing up for that.
So we should expect to hear more about that in this year.
Sure.
About the compact.
We're working on it now.
Great. Do you expect to get a lot of those original invitees onto the compact?
Oh, sure. If they were they were willing to come on board in the beginning and then give us some some input, and I would expect that they would be even more pleased with what the final version will be.
Do you have a timeline on when we should expect to see that final version?
I wish I could have timelines on everything and say it'll be done by this date and done by that date. But when there are a lot of inputs and a lot of really good minds and a lot of good thinkers, a lot of people affiliated with universities, not affiliated with universities, really giving solid input into this, it's just going to take a little time to get it finalized.
Your office filed 18 Title IX investigations last week. What can you tell us about those investigations?
Well, since there are investigations, I won't go into a lot of detail about them, except to say that our department is absolutely committed to enforcing Title IX. The president has made it very clear. He signed an executive order that be no men and women's sports. He expects that to be upheld. We clearly, and the Biden administration's interpretation of Title IX was overturned. So we are back to the original Title IX that was first developed to protect and give women equal opportunity in sports. And so that's what we're operating under. And we believe that sex is defined biologically and not by gender identity.
The Education Department's rulemaking agenda for this spring includes some changes to Title IX as well as to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. What are your expectations for this rulemaking process that will be taking place this spring?
It's just ongoing. And I know I keep saying that, but it's just a process. You've passed different regulations, and now you'll be taking a look at it to see what other rulemaking needs to go in place relative to that. And the whole process, it's rulemaking, then it's a commentary period, and then you go through the whole thing until it's final. So we're involved. I think our Undersecretary Nicholas Kent is doing an incredible job in getting consensus, in a lot of the decisions that are being made to move forward now with the rulemaking.
Something the Education Department has done a lot of work on is the topic of AI in education. How would you describe kind of those efforts so far, and what would you say to young Americans who are concerned about their jobs potentially being replaced by AI in the future as it develops?
Well, I'll tell you, I've looked at AI already from a couple of different angles. I've visited the Alpha School in Austin, Texas, which is based on AI development, so that it's almost like an individual tutor for each student. So part of their day, the first 2 hours of each student's day, they have on their headphones, they're in front of their screens, they're getting their information all through AI, but a teacher monitoring, and the teacher can see if the student is grasping concepts or not, speed up information, slow down information. I mean, it's a wonderful way, to get all of that education. In the last part of the day, they actually then spend on the implementation of that learning process, which then just makes it stick in their minds, a lot longer, and it's fun, and they're enjoying what they're doing. So I've looked at it from that aspect. So AI can be an individual tutor. It can certainly be innovative in many classrooms. It has to have guardrails. We have to make sure that AI isn't being used, especially, in more in high school or higher ed, to write papers or to do the research. That we want the students to do that for themselves. AI can be an incredible tool. Yes, it displace some jobs, yes, but then there's also additional learning, so that you keep filling that pipeline with people who are getting reskilled.
And another thing that's on the rulemaking agenda is making it easier to give new accreditors to gain federal recognition. Could you talk a little bit about why this is important and what we should expect coming forward with this?
Well, there have been the same group of accreditors forever and forever and forever. It's almost like cartels, if you will. And for a long time, a school could not move out of the territory of their assigned accreditor. And now that's changed. They can move from one accreditor to the other. But there are just so few of them, and there are many, many universities that are looking for accreditations. In fact, there is a group already in the South that is working to be their own accreditor, and that process is already in place, and we'd like to see that move forward. I just think we need more accreditors, and we have to constantly be looking at what are their criteria and how are they looking at that criteria, and do they need to be updated? So it's a big job. Colleges and universities seek accreditation so that their students can go and get federal funding, et cetera. So it's an important process.
Another topic the Education Department's done a lot of work on this year is making sure that there's not foreign involvement in universities or even K-12 education. What should we expect on this front in 2026?
Well, really what we want to make sure is that colleges and universities are vetting the students who are coming in. Look, the president said we welcome foreign students here who are coming to learn, who are coming to be truth seekers and to participate in our education system. But we are not looking for agitators to come in. We're not looking for rabble-rousers. And so I think a proper vetting of those students before they come in, and to make sure that they come in on merit, which was a lot that took place in the Students v. Harvard case, in which Harvard was not admitting students on merit, but really almost on a quota system. And so that's another thing we want to avoid.
You've been doing a couple tours around the country, visited a lot of states. Which states do you think you've seen the most enthusiasm for improving civics instruction as part of America 250?
Well, I've now been to between 27 and 30 states, and we've gotten a lot of support. We've focused some of that touring on states when we've called it in celebration of the president's 250th, well, it's not the president's, it's the country's 250th birthday that's coming up in July. We are doing a History Rocks tour, and we've already been to several states with that, and it's focused on civics education. And we do contests and games and the kids are really very responsive because the questions in those contests are all civics questions. Some of them are on a federal level, some of them are particular to their state. And so they rise to the occasion. They love to get the small prizes, that we hand out, but it's more of fun and competition. So that focus on civics, we are really making sure that becomes part of the curriculum. There are many universities right now that are also setting up civic centers for particular studies in civics, and so I think those are really very good too. So we've lost sight. We're not teaching civics in our country. Many of our students in middle school or high school could not pass the citizenship test today. They don't know that there are 3 branches of government. They can't answer those kind of basic questions about how our government works. And we have to do something about that, because if you don't understand your country and how your government works, you're not going to have an appreciation for your country. You're not going to have an understanding of how different your country is compared to other countries around the world. When I saw a stat that only 41% of students 18 to 29 would say that they loved their country or they were proud of their country, that's because they don't know their country. We've got to change that.
The Education Department is very involved, I believe, in the America 250 celebration. What should we expect from your agency in particular as we get closer to the birthday celebration?
I touched on that just a little bit already. We are putting together these tours of states. Excuse me. We're working with now about 50 different coalitions. We have 2 different traveling museums that are going along with us. Glenn Beck has furnished some artifacts that go to different schools, and so when we go and have one of our history rocks, Trail to Independence, in a particular school, some of the artifacts from those museums are there also, and someone speaks about those. And that's when we have these games and these competitions. So working with these coalitions, one of them is Turning Point USA, and we're very happy now that we have. I think we're up to about 50 members of the coalition, and so they are they're partnering with presenting different things at these different schools. They also have some monetary contributions that come in. So we're working very hard to make all this work, and the kids are loving it, and they're learning a lot. I learn a lot too. Some of those questions will pop up and I'll go, I'm embarrassed. I don't know the answer to them.
As we look ahead at 2026, what would you say is your main priority or the thing you hope that Americans should most be following with the Education Department in this year?
Well, I can tell you I made it my #1 priority as soon as I came in and saw these NAEP, the National Report Card scores, about the lack of proficiency in reading across our country. So my #1 priority, is literacy. Because if children cannot read by the time they finish the 3rd grade, they're going to be behind in everything that they are trying to do in school for the rest of their lives. So I am encouraging the science of reading as I travel the state and see what best practices are, so we can put together toolkits for the states and for governors and for state superintendents. These are things that are working in other states. This is not being innovated from Washington. This is not part of the Washington bureaucracy. These are states that are being very innovative, and I think we should continue to foster that innovation. Let teachers teach. Let teachers be innovative in the classroom, and take the handcuffs off of them, and let them really inspire their students to learn, and give them access to curriculum, not that we've developed, but just making them aware of what the different curriculum is. But the science of reading and science-based reading and math is coming along, shortly behind it. It's going to make such a huge difference in the proficiencies, of our students.
After 1 year, what accomplishment would you say the department's most proud of as far as returning education to the states goes?
Well, I think that, the communication that we're getting out, and when I am touring and talking to state superintendents, all over the country, and governors, I'm really proud of the fact that we are establishing that communication, with the different states, and that we are seeing more of a focus on literacy, because I think we really raised the voices of many focusing on those NAEP scores. I mean, the president took office a year ago today, January 20th. He had just gotten the NAEP scores, and he told me that he was not only angry, but he was embarrassed by those scores. So we've come a long way in continuing to beat that drum and to raise that level of focus, so that I think we're going to see improvements. It won't happen overnight. NAEP only tests every 2 years, so it'll take a while, to close this gap, but many states are doing it on their own. We saw Louisiana, for example, where I'm going tomorrow. We saw Louisiana, who was almost in last place in reading proficiency, and they brought in the science of reading, and in 2 years have gone from almost last to number 16. So that's incredible progress. And so we can see, if states focus on it and adopt it, we can really see great progress.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.